No.
Hold on.
Uh-oh.
Go.
I see it. It's live now. Hello, viewers and humans. Welcome to the Noble Brainiacs show. Reporting to you live. This is Thomas, aka T.com on Twitter, and I'm with the wonderful epidemic Michael Wesson. How's it
What's up?
going,
What's
man?
up? What's up, people? What's going on, brother?
Nothing much, man. I can't call it. As I've been saying, and as I always say, ain't nothing to it but to
Michael
do
Wesson.
it.
How's it going? What's up, people? What's going on, brother?
So,
Nothing much, man. I can't call it. As I
we got a few topics to talk about today. As we said in the last podcast or the last show, these two topics will be technology and music. So we're just going to jump right into technology and just get it started. I think we want to talk about is everything in the news right now as far as technology goes. Is every time this company does something, takes a step, turns around, everybody has to post about it. Everyone has something to talk about. But right now it's big. The iPhone 7 is it's near release. It's on the way. And right now we just want to talk about the iPhone 7 and Apple's impact on the current events in technology. So, Mike, how do you feel, man? How do you feel about the iPhone 7?
really got no words for it. Really don't care about it, honestly.
Yeah, so for all the viewers, Mike and myself, we're avid Android users. I didn't like how closed source iOS was. I actually don't. I just not a fan of the iPhone, and I've used it. Yes, I've had it for about 6 to 7 months. Not currently. Currently, I have an LG, and Mike has a Nexus 6P. But just you have to give respect where it's due. Apple and the iPhone, tip your hat. You have to tip your hat. But the fact of the matter is, I would prefer not to have one as my daily driver. But when it comes to, excuse me, the relevance of the company and the phone itself, it did pave the way for a lot, and it is still paving the way. And that kind of leads into the subtopic for the iPhone 7 is the fact that the new iPhone will be omitting the 3.5 headphone jack that will not be present anymore. So it's kind of, to me, I feel like, Mike, it's similar to when Apple did it amongst itself, like within its own products, where you had the iPods and the iPhones that had I think it was 16 pin charger port, the longer one,
Mm-hmm.
and then they just decided to go smaller with without keeping in mind that a lot of their current users still had the older products. So it's kind of like pushing the envelope and changing the wave of technology. So that's what I feel like the iPhone 7 is doing. It's trying to push everyone towards Bluetooth devices. The headphone I'm using now is a 3.5 headphone jack. Pretty much every laptop has a 3.5 headphone jack. The new, if I'm not mistaken, the new MacBook came out with a 3.5 headphone jack. It had a USB-C, of course, but it had a headphone jack. So, how do you feel about Apple trying to push everyone? Because they already did it with the USB-C. That now, Mike, the Nexus 6P has a USB-C. How do you feel
Yeah,
about that?
I was about to say, wait a minute. Let's not give Apple too much credit about that USB-C approach.
No, they initialized it though. They were the ones who started it initially with their devices.
I will say that
If I'm not mistaken.
I will say that I think everybody at first initially laughed at Google when they came out with the 6P, and they wanted to push that USB-C because it was new technology. People were kind of getting used to it. Everybody was kind of up in arms, like, oh, now we got to get new cords, and we got to get new chargers and everything like that. But it's just like any other charger that you get. Apple changes charger ports, 2 or 3 generations within phones, but people still got to buy it. So I don't know what the whole uproar was with Google trying to be inventive, and to be truthfully honest, as a 6P user, the charging capabilities using that USB-C port is amazing. I literally can have my phone charged in less than 45 minutes.
That's 100% full charge, right?
100% full charge. No if, ands, or buts about it. I can basically go, and as literally, I even hate putting my phone sometimes on the charger. Kind of like at night, knowing that my phone's gonna be sitting 100% all night. So
that's pretty interesting.
I mean, it's an amazing feature, and then they also have this new battery pack, which we can dive into that a whole different time. But with Apple doing what they do, it's just another way for them to get more money and to have more people on their side. I'm not necessarily really crazy about it. I'm pretty old school in some way, shape, or form. Where I definitely left the headphone jack. But then again, at the same time, it's also pretty smart in the rationale that that's one less port, one less entryway to get affected in your machine, in your device. A lot of times, Apple had problems with water damage a lot of times in their phones, and what this does now is it actually prevents Apple from having another out with their phone. Now, of course, we don't know how they're going to compensate for this headphone jack, because of course, they can tell when you had water damage. They would reassess the value of your phone depending upon how the headphone jack looked in the system. So it'll be a little interesting to see how they reconcile that situation. But I mean, Apple is who they are. They're going to continue to do things they want to do, and all the Apple fans and fanatics, they'll still buy the phone regardless whether it's headphone jack or not.
To piggyback your point, and actually your phone as well, is one of the beautiful things about the Nexus 6P are the front-facing speakers. Those speakers are amazing. All right, Apple has since been losing in the speaker game since the original iPhone, right? So by removing the 3.5 headphone jack, form factor wise on the inside, that increases the real estate for better speakers and larger speakers for people's sound and music that they're playing. But you have to keep in mind, though, a lot of people would prefer their music in their ear than just surround sound, kind of. So that's kind of their point, and they also can find a way to make their iPhones a lot slimmer by reducing that 3.5 headphone jack on the inside of the phone. The real estate is just with them removing that increases the possibility on a very endless level. They can make it slimmer. They can put better speakers in there. As you said, it reduces water damage. The list goes on. But on a consumer level, a lot of people were kind of dependent on that headphone, those earbuds. I'm sorry, that come in the box, because Apple would innovate those earbuds every time. So now they're going to send those earbuds in the box, but it's going to come with a USB-C adapter in there, a USB-C to 3.5 headphone jack adapter. So you plug it into USB-C, and now you have your headphones. But, excuse me, that increases the possibility of third-party, adapters, third-party makers to make adapters for the iPhone. It makes it harder for consumers to find those adapters. Let's say it breaks. So now they have to use a Bluetooth device or use the speakers built into the device. So Apple just is leveraging the fact that they could change the technology market by putting out a phone and reducing its features, out of the box features and increasing its expansion features, its over-the-air features and things like that. So it's not going to put a hinder on marketing at all. I promise you. Just like you said, Mike, people will be standing in line for this device. It's just a fact of the matter.
Oh, guaranteed. And what makes it worse is that, what you're doing a lot of times is now you're also putting people behind the eight ball who don't have updated vehicles. So now you're telling people with no audio, with no auxiliary cord, no auxiliary ports in their car, okay, guys, if you don't have a Bluetooth car, if you don't have, they might have a USB-C auxiliary cord coming out in the future, which would be great for me. But, in the essence, your car is not capable of handling those kind of situations. Then what? It's kind of almost now
Yeah.
you're seeing people with any car after about, say, 2008, maybe, with no auxiliary ports. Now you're saying, hey, you got you streaming music now with a headphone jack? Sorry, guys. Got to wait till we get this USB-C auxiliary cord coming to your doorstep. And that's just more ways for them to monetize value. But what it also is it also kind of helps with their strategic plans, which, I'm not an Apple employee, so I don't really know 100%. But when you have a large product such as the Beats Audio and the Beats headphones wireless, now you basically can you're starting to get now to that point where you can get into that area where now you can almost package Dre Beats headphones, the Beats by Dre headphones now with the wireless capabilities that they do have now into, with the phone. So now you're almost saying, hey, here you go, guys. We can go ahead and, two for the price of one, but really you're paying double what we really would have charged you. And even if you don't have a 2-year extension or 2-year agreement and your upgrade's not up, you still got to give us about $1,000 for the phone, which people are going to be willing to pay, rightfully so.
Yeah, you're right. And actually, to your point, a light bulb just went off while you were speaking. With Apple owning Beats by Dre, it makes a lot more sense because the most expensive version of the Beats by Dre headphones are the Bluetooth ones, right? So most of the consumers who have Beats by Dre headphones are going to have the wired headphones. They're going to have, because right now, those are like $99, the smaller, slimmer ones, right? Most kids are asking their parents for it for their birthdays and for Christmas and holidays and things like that. Yet, they're trying to increase or monetize the sale of the Beats by Dre headphones. And if the only people buying the Bluetooth ones are white collar people or people who hold down a substantial job or producers, right? That's bringing in a lot of money, but they want to pitch to a different demographic, right? They want to get the iPhone users on that Bluetooth device. Like right now, the Beats by Dre solos are between 99 to 150, but the Beats by Dre Bluetooths, you can get the earbuds for like 80, and everything else is 200 and up. Okay, so now you have to trade in your solos or donate them or give them away. So it's a smart marketing ploy. And thank you for the light bulb. That makes sense. It's an easy way for Apple to monetize their subsidiaries. I mean, they're Beats by Dre now.
And honestly, my only reservation with them at this point in time is if they, and this is where I knew they were going with this, which is why I never liked the idea to begin with, is now you're telling people who really truly can't afford the phone to begin with, it's still find ways to buy the phone. You're basically telling them, hey guys, we want more money. In a day and time, the workforce, of course, everybody has his opinions on it, whether it's getting back to, what it used to be or whether it's still kind of behind the 8 ball. That's neither here nor there. Basically, you're having people who aren't making as much money as they could, but everything is going up. The price of, just not even just supplies, but the price of, perishable products, the price of food, price of gas, everything is going up. And now you're asking people who truly don't make a lot of money. And of course, that might be there might be their own reservations. That might be their own situation, their own, pitfalls, whatever the case may be. But I just don't like companies basically forcing people to make a decision when it should be about the consumers. To me, Apple's kind of gotten to the point where they're not really about the consumers anymore. They're just doing it because they know people are going to buy it, and that's the way to monetize money. And I don't necessarily really care for it much. But then again, you find ways around it. If you don't want to pay full price for the product, then you buy it used. You buy it off by somebody else. You find ways to get around those loopholes. And as we being technology guys as we are, we always tend to find a pretty decent bargain from a used technology product that we can basically turn around and make it new, and make it like anybody else never has made it before. So it's always good to have those kind of people in your corner if you know them, and you're buying these Apple phones. But I really think that Apple, whatever Tim Cook is doing right now, bravo to him. His bonuses, his bonuses are real nice, and hey, I can't complain. If I had his money and his bonuses, I wouldn't complain either. But I think Apple lost their way a little after Steve, passed, and they haven't been the
I would
same.
yeah. There was a big hole in that Titanic at the bottom. I mean, it was a big puncture there. So,
Absolutely.
I mean, that what you said though kind of segues, actually directly segues into the next topic, which is Google's Nexus device, the new Nexus device. Now, for you to have a 6P and to be from a friend's perspective, understanding that you're overjoyed with the product, you love it, all right. Uh, and then this year, two new ones coming out. Right now, they're under code names, as Google would prefer to do that. But do you feel that Google and the Nexus device, even though Google always has some type of OEM manufacturer to make the Nexus device, so that kind of adds to the anticipation of what Nexus device is coming out. What OEM will make this one. From what I've read, a lot of sources believe that one of these products will be made by HTC, which would be interesting because the first Android phone I ever had was the Nexus One, and that was made by HTC. And I have never had a phone that blew my mind the way the Nexus One did. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. Are you excited for the new Nexus devices?
I am, just from the standpoint of basically, figuring out what new and crazy ideas that Google is coming with, and of course, being a pure Android user right now, you kind of have the pearls of getting some of the ability to go ahead and and I've had opportunities to download Android M, but I'm sorry, Android M in, but I haven't done it yet, and it's a possibility I might try to do the developer preview pretty soon to kind of see the differences. But every update that you get every month, you kind of get some of those new features. You kind of get some of those. Like I said, I just changed my Google keyboard not too long ago, with a different theme, which we couldn't have done a while ago, which is also in the new Android N developer preview. So that right there kind of gives Google a little customization that you didn't have in the past, but now you kind of have a selling point to a lot of your consumers where you can say, hey guys, you can do this now, you can do that. And I love Google's devices because they're basically straight 100% pure right out the box. They don't give you any gimmicks. You get what you pay for. This is what you asked for. This is what you're going to get.
Very much so.
Now, my only reservation with this is that the Huey 6P product I thought was pretty genius. LG made the Nexus 5X, which people have made some comments about it, but I think at the end of the day, I think it's still one of those pretty revolutionary products to have a secondary phone with the level and capabilities that phone has, and kind of somewhere surpass some of the lesser known phones out there. Will it be the iPhone? Probably not, but it's still a pretty dependable product that you can use, and it's it might be somewhat affordable, but some people will say, hey, well, you got to spend $500, $600 on a new Nexus device. Well, this is true, but Nexus doesn't have any ties to any cellular device companies, so basically you're not getting a phone from Verizon for a contract price, which sometimes can be a good thing because you're not necessarily paying for the service, you're paying for the phone itself, which basically, if you want to spend $500 for the phone, this phone basically has not given me any trouble at all. And I've dropped it, a few times. I got a case on it, but I'm pretty excited about the possibility of having a new Nexus device. The HTC phone, I've seen some renders of it. It's kind of iPhone-ish. It's kind of iPhone-ish to me, man. Not really. I'm not crazy.
And
not crazy about it, but.
And to your point,
I want to test it. I want to test it out first.
HTC has been.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and HTC HTC has been mimicking the Apple products and the iPhone since, I don't know, for the past 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one caveat. In fact, when HTC as an OEM, a manufacturer for your product, Google, and I think Google, oh, this is Google. I think they were aware of this before they went into it, because everything with the Nexus device, Google has to sign off on anyway. They have to approve everything from a manufacturer. So that's one thing I love about Nexus devices is it's a pure Google experience from the hardware to the software. So it's not just because it has another company's logo on the back doesn't mean that Google didn't look at it and say, "No, I think the consumers won't like that," or "Yeah, I think the consumers will love that." So, spoiler alert, by the way, I'm getting the LG G5 tomorrow. By the way, it's coming in the mail. Pretty excited about that, but I'm saying that only to say that the true vanilla Android experience is one of a kind. You can only get that from a Nexus device or the vanilla version of your product. And mainly Samsung products. Oh, here's a segue. That's pretty cool. But mainly Samsung products have that vanilla version. You have some HTC products, but you can get the vanilla version of most Galaxy devices. Speaking of Galaxy devices, the Note 7 is on the verge, badoonts, of coming out as well. Um, I don't know if you are a Note uh, connoisseur, if you like the Note and its impact in the phablet world. It actually created the phablet world itself. So, how do you feel about the Note 7?
I would honestly say I think that's one of the only devices that Samsung has probably gotten right. Um, Maybe aside from their tablets. I do think that their tablets are very interesting because they're the only tablets where you can actually, put a micro SD card chip in it and basically, expand the memory within the actual device itself, which is kind of cool because a lot of tablets nowadays restrict you. They're 16 or 32. Of course, now you have the iPad Pro, which is 128, and then of course you have the Microsoft Surface, which is of course just a smaller PC in your hand. But I think Samsung has gotten it right with two products, their tablets, and I think right now with the Note 7, I'm sorry, the Galaxy Note 7, I think they've done it right this time. I love the specs. I think that the people who love Notes continue to love Notes. I
Yeah.
think they had a little, you know, they reverted back last year when they took away that expandable memory, and I feel like they're trying to get it back. They also have the new iris scanner on the Note 7, so that should be interesting as well too.
See,
Not
but
only,
that's actually getting a little scary though. That's getting a little Minority Reportish. That's getting a little uh,
yeah, yeah,
a
yeah.
artificial intelligence like. But anyway, keep going. But
Now,
that
I mean,
it's
don't get me wrong. I agree with you 100%. But what I think it does is it puts them in a whole other spectrum right now because now you have no other phone that has that capability yet. When you're the first to market with that kind of technology, people are going to want to go, I
and
think
you
I
would
can.
yeah, and you would think the military actually would jump right on that actually. And coming up, I mean, we don't know. We're speaking, in the future technically, but let's just say the Navy is the first one to push this form of technology and innovation out. I don't see why the military wouldn't issue these phones out to a lot of their uh, very high end top secret type of people. But you know,
Well, they don't have the security behind the phones to give the government pause the calls. You know what I mean? Like people are still going to
yeah,
use BlackBerry, and I mean, don't get me wrong. Some people still use. I mean, they even use some Microsoft phones, and I mean, those are kind of phones that are very less used. But some of them have it. But for the most part, you know, BlackBerry is about as secure as you're going to get without all the
man,
gimmicky technology and everything like that. And it's kind of sad that BlackBerry has resulted to just government government officials and not necessarily
yeah,
wide consumer popularity, but
yeah.
like they once were.
But
But
you can't beat that. No, you can't beat it.
No,
Yeah.
you really can't, but I mean, it is a little scary, but I think that honestly, this is really one thing that we probably should table to another conversation to a later date, maybe some kind of wait for some things to kind of develop first. But there's this really weird arms race involved with the federal government right now, and the future use of devices and products, and I'm not sure which company's trying to get to that race. Um, I would like to think Google might throw their hands in that race, but I don't think they're really that concerned about being in that realm, in that world right now. I think Apple,
Now,
Microsoft, and Samsung are the only ones that seem pretty concerned with getting that money.
yeah, yeah. I mean, nowadays it's hard to determine what Google is 100% serious on. Anyway, they have a science or research development division of Google. I mean, the smartest thing that they did was, and this is something we should table for a later time on another technology session, but uh, them creating themselves as a subsidiary of a company that they even created within itself. So, Alphabet is the name of the company. But Google could now, with that being created, Google can now focus on research and development, which Google's great at. And I don't really think Google would jump into that market and stay there. I think they'll innovate something, produce something really great for it, and then change perspective and go to something new. Similar to how they did the Google Glass, similar to how they have the modular phones coming out, similar to, Android Wear, so on and so forth. They'll look at something, make an impact, create a market for it, and then go towards something else. But anyway, that kind of segues. Not really, actually. This is a new topic. Microsoft made the biggest purchase in its history of LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn, the business social media platform, both web-based and application-based, where, as I said earlier, most white collar, blue collar, if you have a job and you work at McDonald's, you can sign up for LinkedIn and put your resume up there and just showcase your abilities and your work experience online in a social media aspect. Now, the fact is, Microsoft bought LinkedIn for $26.2 billion. I must say it again, that's a lot of money. $26.2 billion. Now, uh, Microsoft already has Yammer, which is its own internal social media application for its own employees. I was thinking that they were doing this to make an impact into the social media market, and now I just have a question mark. Why do you think they made a purchase of LinkedIn for such a large amount of money?
Because they fucking can. Excuse my language.
I mean, you can't beat that. I mean, Microsoft and Apple, they have the money to just do whatever they want, and Google, I'm sorry, and Amazon. So the big four have the money to just do whatever they want.
but
That's a
see,
fact. Yeah.
those other companies that you named, they're smart enough to not make a purchase like this without having any sense of direction. It's almost as if you buy the company just to have an asset. It's almost like nothing's going to change. And Yammer is something that most companies use now. Because I know IBM had a Yammer at one time. I know Microsoft uses it now. So most companies now are starting to use Yammer a lot more. Um, but I'm my only thing is this: if Microsoft, the giant that they are, if they make this kind of decision in this purchase, you have to do it with some sort of vision in mind. Are you going to allow people to actually take Microsoft training courses through LinkedIn now? Are people who are interested in Microsoft positions now going to have a better chance of getting a position if they have a LinkedIn account with, or in a certain area? What's the vision behind it now? Is it going to be something where it's going to be a platform now where possibly Skype for Business can integrate more within LinkedIn? So now when you apply for a job, you don't necessarily need to go
You,
to the job now. Now you can sit at home, video chat, video conference, web video interview, however you want to, without necessarily having to go in places now. So now basically, if you have a job in California, you basically can, do the interview from your home. You don't have to worry about traveling anymore. It's going to help companies that are on LinkedIn with a presence to give them an opportunity, but it's really all about what Microsoft is going to plan on doing with LinkedIn down the road. I hope they innovate it. I mean, LinkedIn is a pretty great networking and resource tool. But I'll ask you, just from your personal experience of using LinkedIn, what do you feel like they're going to do with this application in particular?
Oh, wow. I actually think they're going to integrate a lot with it. I personally feel like with Microsoft having such a large footprint on the market, on the certification market. So if you think about it, you can get a certification for a lot in the IT world. But as far as stackability or what certification weighs the most, or which company has the most certification, you're going to go Microsoft, right? Microsoft has so many different certifications. Microsoft also has the biggest word processing and Office utility and so you have PowerPoint, you have Word, you have Publisher, you have Excel, you have everything, and that's all Microsoft. Even Apple in the 5 years had to develop its own version of Office just for Apple products. That way its consumers could still use a Mac and still have the functionality of being a business person and things like that. I feel like Microsoft's main purpose right now, our main focal goal, business world, right? You have your research in motion that still has a very large control over the government, right? Government, that email encryption, you just can't beat it, right? It's that's proprietary to research in motion. They're not going to sell it. But when it comes to your corporate level, your business level people, they're going to go Microsoft, right? Most people put all of their certifications, work experience, things like that, whether it be IT, whether it be social working, whether it be a custodian, right? All that's on LinkedIn, right? Now, Microsoft has a bigger perspective on the hiring market, all right? Now they can look at who has their own certification, who has the company certification, who's skilled in Excel, who's a SME or a subject matter expert for PowerPoint or Excel or Word or what have you. All right. So I feel like that's just more of a control for Microsoft as a company to control occupational interest, if you will. So,
But
whether
what is that? How does that help them going forward? Unless they plan on building thousands of other smaller companies, what difference does it help them if a custodian in you know Alabama is gonna use Microsoft Office? He's gonna have no credence to use Office Window Word unless he's using it from home. And quite frankly, if he's 30-year custodian, he just put a LinkedIn profile up there just to network with some of his old classmates. What good is that can do Microsoft? You know what I mean? There's got to be some sort of plan.
technically, if he found a job through LinkedIn, right? Who can he account finding that job to? Like, what big company can he account finding that job to? Microsoft. That's a bigger footprint. It's a bigger monopolizing impact in a different area.
But Microsoft ain't cutting the checks.
They don't need to. It's accountability. It's now more about word of mouth. It's more
So
about
basically all they want is credit.
it's more about credit. It's more about verbal impact. So you have so much competition. All right. Best example, and this is my I'm gonna give two examples for this. You have companies that now have billions, almost billions of dollars, if not have made billions of dollars with no real physical asset, no tangible asset. So uh, you have Uber, right, which is the biggest taxi service in the world right now, but they don't own any taxis. They don't own one taxi. You have Airbnb, which is the biggest hotel uh, company in the world right now, but they don't own any hotels, right? So if you can credit Microsoft to helping people find X amount of jobs a year, they just did it. They did it without headhunters. They did it without recruiters. They did it through social media. They don't have any tangible assets with or tangible aspects of helping you find a job or get a job, but you found that job through LinkedIn. Hypothetically, right? We're just going to say hypothetically. You found the job through LinkedIn. You found the job through networking. You found the job through communicating with someone via LinkedIn. Well, technically, LinkedIn is owned by Microsoft. It's like being a silent investor for a restaurant, right? You just raking in 10% every month, and someone comes to you and says, "Hey, have you ever tried Mike's Fried Chicken or Mike's Soul Fish or Mike's Sushi?" And you're like, huh, "That's funny. I'm Mike." But no one knows because Mike's a common name. You're just a silent investor. You're not worried about it. So I feel like, just like you said earlier, Microsoft is just looking for credit because with so much competition being created every day, someone's probably working on a program or application right now that would do what everything Microsoft has already been trying to do, everything Google's already been trying to do, in Apple. But if you could do a handshake with that company, if you could say, "Hey, I'm not here to buy you out. I'm not here to do that Facebook effect." Because what Facebook does is they'll buy out their competition, absorb their competition, and not do anything with them. Yeah, that
IBM's
works.
the same way. IBM's the same way. I mean, most big companies do that. I mean, that's
Yeah.
how you get big. That's how you get bigger.
And at first, I thought that was what Microsoft was going to do with LinkedIn until I started, doing some deep critical thinking, and I realized that maybe they're actually trying to use LinkedIn to be one of those Airbnbs, Uber, and Lyft perspectives, where they're helping X amount of Americans and just people that live in the world, humans in general, find jobs without actually having to tangibly do it. Someone doesn't actually have to call a human resource person through Microsoft to find a job, down the street. So that's what I personally believe that's going on with that purchase.
And with all that said, if Apple were to come out with something like LinkedIn today, nobody would give a crap about what Microsoft has done.
And that'll just be the clash of the titans thing. That's that's what's going on every day. It's the big four. It's the
I
clash
mean,
of the
I honestly
titans.
could see Apple buying out Monster right now and killing the whole game. I can honestly see that. And LinkedIn would be an afterthought because nobody would really care anymore. Apple could
Yeah.
revise Monster into a whole different animal, and you have a bigger monster. And then what do you do? I
Actually,
I think what Microsoft did is just basically they just got more checks basically. But what it does is it gives them an opportunity to basically try to build a portfolio for something bigger. I don't know what it could be, but
I would
maybe it could be
I,
emerging.
I would actually see Monster doing a push pull scenario with Apple saying we want more money. We've been around for this amount of time. I can see Apple buying Indeed because Indeed is so new and so I guess money hungry. I guess Apple could offer Indeed a bunch of money and Indeed would say, "Yeah, sure." And then Microsoft's purchase of LinkedIn would be an afterthought. You're right. But then we would have a situation where we clash of the Titans again, just like with the cloud aspect or the cloud storage. You have Amazon's cloud services, and then you have Microsoft's Azure cloud services clashing, going at it. And you have Google in that market as well. You want to talk about automated cars? You have Apple and Google going at it head to head. Tesla is somewhere down the line. We just don't know. They're in there somewhere, but they'll get there. So I think to your point, this is Microsoft throwing the gauntlet down to the big four, saying, "I'm doing this. I'm trying to help the business world. What are you going to do?" And I think someone's going to step up. I just don't know who.
Honestly, I think Look, let's be honest. The only reason Microsoft is still staying afloat is because they have the best word processing software ever. If it weren't for that, they would no longer be around. Honestly, Windows, when they changed Windows 7, they lost a lot of fans when they went to Windows 8. Windows 10 has gotten some of those fans back. But since they've been staples in technology for decades, not one, not two, not three, but decades, they're trying to find some sort of relevancy. And I don't think this helps unless they really decide to revamp LinkedIn, which if they're just going to sit around and collect checks, then that's not helping them at all. But
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just the continuous fight to try to stay on top. That's all I think it is. I mean, because
but you gotta be relevant to stay on top, man. It's hard.
well,
It is
that's the
hard.
well, that's the thing. I mean, Microsoft has been struggling since Windows 7, right? But when you really look at the footprint on the market, uh, yeah, on the PC market, Microsoft still owns that. And I'm a Linux guy. It's hard for me to say that, but if you go to Best Buy right now, if you go to Walmart right now, you go to Kmart, every laptop different. They range from different OEMs. They're going to have some variation of Windows on it, hands down. Apple has to have their own store. Apple has to have their own isolated section within Best Buy for their products. Google is the same way. So Microsoft realized, oh, we're losing them. But little did they know, people were already like jumping off the boat. But the fact is, they were like,
With,
oh,
with, with life jackets on. With life
exactly. Like the Titanic was a very big boat, and they still had like half the people. Which Titanic was a big boat, so half the people was still a lot of people, but the other half had already left. They're like, you know what,
We out,
this is
man. We out.
this isn't going to end well. I'm done with this. You know what I mean? So they're trying to get those people back on that large ship. You know what I mean? And they're trying to do what they can to do that. I mean, I tip my hat and good luck. But the big four is always listening. Like you said, one of the big four will probably. I wouldn't be shocked if Amazon. Now think about this, man. We got more topics to cover, but think about Amazon purchasing Indeed or Monster. That would be
I can't cuss. I've already cussed once. I won't cuss again on this podcast. But if Amazon were to buy Indeed, or even if they were to buy Simply Hired, for example,
yeah. That's a good one. That's a good
I would I'd probably crap my pants.
one.
Because it would just be that much of a monumental move. Now, Amazon has surprisingly made moves into each particular spectrum and field silently.
Silently, yeah.
The only thing they haven't done successfully, and we've already talked about this a few times.
You know what? We got more topics now. Woo! Yo.
The
Woo,
Fire phone, man, they
woo.
messed up with that phone. But I'm gonna tell you something though.
You know what? Hold on.
Amazon,
You've already cursed, so let me get one. What a load of shit. Why would you do something like that? All right, I got it out. I just had to get it out.
oh man! But I'm gonna tell you something though. If whoever's running Amazon, I hope they find this video, and I hope they listen to this podcast, because what I'm about to say right now, it would help the world tremendously. If Amazon were to buy out BlackBerry, buy out RIM, they would be the biggest company on the planet. And I tell you why. Because they have the infrastructure to build whatever phone they want. Just get the technology. Get a BlackBerry technology and just use it. You would have a niche phone, for one, that nobody's using right now except for a few people that do business or in the government. Buy it out. What else? You have the money. People use Amazon every day. You have a Prime service now that basically people can order stuff at 12 o'clock in the afternoon and get it sent by their house. Excuse me, by 4. I mean, you really can't beat that.
Man, could you imagine Research in Motion and AWS together? I
And
mean,
now you want to talk about how the people are fighting to get that government money? Amazon will be the very first company with successfully integrated cloud services for the federal government.
Guaranteed. Guaranteed. Now, they would never live that whole fire phone thing down, but they would eventually get back to where they're supposed to be.
Yeah, look, well, they made a mistake. Everybody's entitled to make mistakes. We all do. We're not perfect. So
Oh yeah, you're right. Microsoft and Apple make mistakes every day, but and so do no, and honestly, so does Google. I mean, that Google Glass thing, even they made it a very formal way, in a very very formal way, a mistake. They had a keynote, they had a press conference, and everything. But it's funny because Google didn't give up. They said they're going to keep researching, and I think there's another Google Glass. I think there's Google Glass 2 coming out. So uh, they
yeah.
don't give up. All right. So real quick, so we can finish up technology and get to music, and then kind of wrap it up. Uh, Pokemon Go. All right. I don't play it because I know the essence of it. I know kind of it's a very smart move, and I see why they did it. But how do you feel about Pokemon Go? Is it the future of gaming or just a gimmick? I'm gonna turn your question back to you.
I'll be honest. I think it's a little bit of both, and that's kind of the reason why I want to talk about it because the craze about it in itself is kind of almost on the level of an Angry Birds or a Candy Crush or any one of these other games that we play. But for some odd reason, this game actually has levels and layers to it. That's how some of these games that we have now might not have as much allure and they might not have as much history, but Pokemon has a strange cult following, which they still sort of have a stranglehold on. This game, it originated back overseas and it came over here in the late '90s. It was a craze that everybody had to have, and they came out with games, and of course they had the cards that we can purchase, and you actually play the actual card game with your friends and against other people in tournaments and leagues and make money off of these things. And now with such a huge gaming convention as in Pokemon Go has been established. Now you kind of have another footprint in this whole realm of gaming now, or now where you kind of almost have reinvented yourself, and reinvented the product to the point where now anybody can play it. Of course, with all the horror stories you heard about it being, pretty dangerous. People sort of setting up people to get robbed. Using the location. I've heard people. I'm not going to say any names, but I have heard people, hacking their phones and their games, and using modded versions of the game, to rearrange or revert their location. So it's I think if more people kind of can do that, you're gonna have a pretty interesting game. And it's just like if you're a kid of the '90s, or in the '80s maybe by chance, you played the Pokemon Yellow, Red, and Blue games.
Ha! To your point. To your point. Uh, Pokemon is smart, right? They're crazy intelligent, and they make an impact. I'm going to say every decade. So 10 years ago, 1996, February 27th, was when Pokemon Red and Blue came out for the Game Boy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was one of those people. Um, I don't think, no, I played Pokemon Red for the first time, and I couldn't put it down. It was the best thing ever on like handheld wise. Whether you like Pokemon the TV show or the card game, which hadn't come out yet, but whether you like Pokemon the TV show or not, you loved the Game Boy version of it, right? There are people playing Pokemon Go who are straight gangsters who don't know anything about a Charizard or a Mewtwo or anything like that. People haven't realized that it took 10 years for Pokemon to, or the developers creators of Pokemon, to see a hole in the market and just plug themselves right into it. Because this is really originating from geocaching. People would geocache all the time. Geocaching was basically, I have a GPS or a mobile device with GPS in it, and I'm going to look for historical landmarks. I'm going to look for places on my Sunday where I have nothing to do that are part of where I live that most people don't notice, right? I'm going to go to this park and I'm going to stand in this corner because this geocaching tells me that this is an old war site, so on and so forth, right? You tap into the GPS of a mobile device and then you produce a Pokemon. Just as all psychological, you put a Pokemon where a geocaching location may be, hypothetically, and people will gravitate to that. People are going to navigate to that because they think it creates a verb aspect of it. It creates an action to it. Now people can psychologically connect to that game. They're like, I'm outside. I need to find this Pokemon, which is all digital, which is all figurative, but I'm using this locationing device to go next to this tree because there is a Snorlax sleeping on the backside of this tree. He doesn't know that I'm here. Now, from the outside perspective of someone that's not playing the game, and I see you, Mike, and you're walking to a tree with your phone out, I'm going to say you look a bit remedial. I don't really know your level of mental capacity, but if I was engaged in the same game, then we'd be on the same plane. 10 years ago, people were walking around with Game Boys, and they were catching Pokemon with their thumbs. Now they're catching Pokemons with their phones. So who's to say that 10 years from now Pokemon wouldn't be relevant again? Because Pokemon technically lost a lot of fans. They were getting the younger generations, they were getting the younger demographics every few years, right? That technically in the American eyes wasn't really enough. Like most Americans really didn't care about Pokemon in the past 5 years. Like, what was the biggest thing you heard, Mike, about Pokemon in the past 5 years?
Nothing.
Right? So to make themselves relevant again, to make a big impact, everyone has a phone in their pocket. Everyone either has a phone in their pocket or their hand. So to make a game that uses that augmented reality and put Pokemon back in it. You remember Tamagotchi? What if
Definitely. Definitely.
if Tamagotchi did it, everybody be talking about Tamagotchi. It was just Pokemon.
I don't think so, man.
You don't think so?
No.
Actually, you know what? I'm gonna smack myself on the hand. That is wrong because actually, there was a Ghostbusters augmented reality Android game that came out where you could catch ghosts with your phone, and that lasted a week. I saw people doing that for a week, and that was it. But Pokemon wasn't completely relevant, but they stayed a household name for a while, and I feel like this is their way within a decade to stay popular. I think they did it. They used geocaching and put it together.
I'm gonna tell you where they messed up. Where they messed up was they finally let Ash Ketchum become the Pokemon Master. When he
Yeah.
finally became the Pokemon Master, that's when everything just went down the drain. I mean, literally, when you start, because then at that point, what does he do now? What does he do now? What's the new allure now of the show? You're basically watching this television show to see him finally get to this point. Then when he does, and that's when the show started fading away. When he finally won, and they even had movies that came out that were pretty interesting. So when you finally do that, then it's like, okay, now what? And they lost a lot of relevancy, and they started changing around and started adding new characters and started developing new different things, and that's when the game kind of took a turn somewhat for the worse. But then you also had Yu-Gi-Oh that came out that, I mean, they pretty much dominated for a pretty good time, and it was something new that nobody had ever seen before, where you got a whole different fan base. So I think Pokemon has like I said, they have a pretty interesting cult following. So it's interesting to see grown adults who are roughly around the same age as we are playing this game because, of course, they grew up, in the same time frame we did. So, when you see these guys walking outside, like you said earlier, looking remedial, it's not a good look on society, but it's also not a good look for them as adults because it just shows that everybody has a little child in them when they get over the age of 21. So it's just a matter of having those things expose that. But you kind of have to be gotta be mindful of a lot of those things, and I hope that it's genius. I mean, Nintendo's a genius. I mean, I don't know what else we can say. They took an old game format, platform, and source, and used the geocaching and kind of combined the two and made a whole new game. So, I mean, kudos to Nintendo for that. And it also kind of helps, going forward, even with their future plans, which is something we can talk about, another later time. But it's pretty impressive. Like I say, kudos to Nintendo for this.
Gotta give them the credit. Gotta give credit where it's due, man. That was good. That was good. And I mean, geocaching was a thing of the past. I mean, it's beautiful for a company to leverage things that were in the past to right now and make it 10 times more relevant. So if someone could just do that with the VCR, we'd be good to go. Anyway,
no chance. No chance.
So police officers still use VCRs though. Like the police force still use VCRs and the FBI and places. Just from our security cameras and things like that, and they still have. It's crazy, but that stuff is still relevant. Not on the large scale.
That's the only trusted media that you can use. I mean, you really can't trust a DVD or a CD to work properly these days. So it's best to just go ahead with what you know. But we can always ask the ATF what they're using these days, since they're the only government agency that hasn't moved into the 21st or hell even the 20th century for that matter.
Yeah, and let's see if they'll be really open to answer that question. But
yeah.
Oh man. But I don't know. I guess we can go all the way back to the smartphone aspect or the smartphone genre of our conversation. And this is the closing question for technology is I have a big gripe with this because I don't think on the Android sense it will be. But anyway, will there be a phone other than a Galaxy or an iPhone with customer longevity? And the question, to break it down a little bit more, is there are still people with iPhone 4s right now in 2016. There are people with Galaxy Notes or Note 4s, Note 2s, Note 3s. Will there be a phone right now that, excuse me, Mike, you feel like you would go buy and you could see yourself having it for at least 2 to 5 years? And it will withstand the test of time.
It's sad to say, but I don't think any phone will ever have that longevity. I don't even think Apple or Samsung would have that longevity. And I say that because people who have older phones don't have them because they want to have them. They have them because they're forced to use them because they can't afford to buy the newest upgrade, the newest update.
But I actually also think there are a lot of people that are just content with their phone. I know for a fact there are people that just because of the affordability of these newer phones, they can't. But I still think there are some people out here, a very large amount of people, who are just content with their phone. They're not going to be standing in line for the new iPhone or the new Galaxy because everything that their current Galaxy or current iPhone does, they're fine with. But anyway, I didn't mean to cut you off. Keep going. Keep going.
No, I mean, like I said, and I agree with that 100%. I mean, there's people, for crying out loud, that still use flip phones. My grandparents being two of those people. But of course, they're 85 and 86 respectively, and they don't necessarily have the time nor the wherewithal to really want to text or want to be on Facebook. How many 85 or 86-year-old people are on Facebook? Their friends aren't on Facebook. Their friends are right across the street. They don't want to have to, send them a post on Facebook to say, "Hey, I'm cooking this pie this weekend." No, they go across the street. They tell the neighbor, "Hey, I got a pie in the oven. Do you want a slice? Come over and get some when it's done." This is kind of, it's kind of just that whole realm. And I think a lot of people really are, and truthfully, I mean, we're missing the whole point. I think it's really more so about security. And I think that once these phones get more secure, and you don't have people trying to take advantage of the capabilities of these phones, then you're always going to have that group of people that's going to be more hesitant to get the newer and latest technology because they're not trustworthy of the technology. So I think, and be truthfully honest, I think the cell phone market has gotten more saturated as of late because now you have a lot of off-brand cellular devices coming out, and then you have these prepaid companies now that are starting to develop, and some of the easiest phones to get access to are the Apple and Android phones because they're more mass produced. So why not use a Galaxy 4 for the track phone, or Boost Mobile, or for straight talk. Why not use those phones? When you overproduce phones like that and they resell them on the market, it's easy to use that phone because it was a widely used and popularized phone at the time. Me personally, I probably would never go back to Apple or Samsung. Just me personally. I probably would stick with Google for the remainder of my life, even if I have to even if I had to dish out $500-600 every 2 years, or 3 years to get a new phone. That's what I'll do. But I don't ever foresee myself going back to Apple or Samsung just because of the market that they have, but also just because of their instability in phones. And I think a lot of times in order to be a great company, you have to have one stability and you have to know where you're going. And I think a lot of times Apple and Samsung, they sort of acquiesce to customer demands quite a bit. And I will say that, or maybe not Apple's as much as Samsung, but I will say for Google, they come out with a phone and their fans respect the phones, and they develop the phones in order to respect their loyal and long fan base. So I think Google has that respect from their fans and consumers, and vice versa. But a lot of other companies don't. I think Apple has the allure because it's cool, and Samsung, of course, has the allure because it's second cool. So I think there will be eventually. I thought Motorola had a chance to be at one time. I thought HTC had a chance to be at one time, but I think Google might be the only company that does have a chance. And I think they have to have a phone within the next year or two, maybe hopefully with these new phones that they have coming out, that will be the catalyst to get them on that in that conversation.
Crap. Now I have a compounding question. So you don't see yourself maintaining that Nexus 6P for more than a year and a half longer than what you have it for now?
I can see myself doing that. I wouldn't. Trust me, I'm not looking to get rid of it, but Google has to come up with something that's going to blow my mind up as to what I'm already blown to having this phone. So
Okay.
but trust me, it won't be for buying an Apple or a Samsung. That's for sure.
Okay, and I'm with you there. I don't really have that big of a rebuttal because everything you said, I pretty much agree wholeheartedly. I really can't say just with the current wave of phones, because even when you find a phone, because currently I said this to you, I'm a big fan of LG. Uh, I'm not really ready to jump away from LG. And now every year LG produces a new phone, and they're just getting into the same mundane aspect of phone, excuse me, recycling that Apple and Samsung are doing. So I let's say I just leave LG and I go to Nexus, right? Back to Nexus. And then as you just said, they're doing that too. So I think it's just a trend. Actually, no, I don't. I think it's a continuous trend. I don't think it's just a trend for this year. I don't see this actually stopping. And the real reason why I don't is because marketability. There's so much profit in it. There's a dependency from the consumers. Uh, if think about it, if the companies didn't, if the consumers didn't buy it, the companies wouldn't do it. Every year there's a new iPhone. Every year there's a new Galaxy, and they're not just doing it to doing it or to be doing it. I'm sorry, they're doing it just because they know the consumers will stand in line for it. They know the consumers will go to their branch stores for it. They'll go to their Verizon stores, their T-Mobile stores, their Sprint stores, and buy the latest version of the phone just to outdo their neighbor or their friend. So I agree. It's not going to change. Um, all right, so it's almost 10:30. One of our topics is all encompassing. One of our topics just is everything. Uh, so, what just to jump into it real quick, how do you feel about the state of hip hop right now, or state of hip hop and rap? Do you feel like I personally feel like it's mundane. I turn on the radio. I don't personally listen to the radio, but since I've moved, I've been listening to the radio a lot. And I feel like everybody pretty much sounds the same. Everyone's mimicking off of each other. Everyone's mimicking off of what's profitable. Everybody's using auto tune. Everyone's, excuse me, sounding like Future. Everyone's sounding like Gucci Man. Everyone's sounding like someone else, and no one's being unique anymore. That's how I feel. How do you feel about hip hop and rap?
I mean, like I said, I haven't listened to the radio fully in quite some time now, and because of those points that you made, that you so eloquently put together, um, that's the reason why I don't listen to the radio. Uh, I mean, if I want to listen to Future, I just put a CD of Future in my CD deck.
Hmm.
I mean, it's kind of that simple. I mean, I don't. It's not rocket science, as far as music, but it just seems that there's a lack of creativity in music. There's a lack of respect amongst artists and peers, and I think money's more involved than ever before, and I think that unfortunately um, changes the viewpoint and perspective of artists and how they make music. But I have to give shout out to the guys that are doing it, and guys and gals that are doing it pretty well. And the Kendricks and the Coles and the Rhapsodies and the Chances and the Gambinos and you know those guys are like it's just music isn't music is not what it was, and I'm hoping that you know we had a little low point in the 90s, where it was a little stagnant, but of course you still had Jay and Nas dropping material that was world renowned. But I'm hoping that at some point in time, in the next year or two, we sort of get this renaissance again, where we start having lyricism matter. You know, um, amongst,
Ooh,
but it, it's
that
it's it's gonna be hard. It's gonna take some jousting from some of the more lyricistic individuals, but it's also gonna take a lot from the common everyday fan, to really get tired of spending money on the same music and realizing that you have an iTunes catalog now of 500 songs and they all sound the same.
all sound the same. Man, that couldn't have been worded any better. Like I couldn't have typed that up for you and sent it to you, and you could have worded it any better, man. That was amazing. That was awesome. I personally I personally feel that Uh, wow, that was well put. To your point, I personally don't feel like in the state of hip hop and rap that the night like in the '90s you you had his dry points, but everybody now from like the 2000s into the current music samples something from the '90s, right? Unfortunately, I know it's a bit inevitable, but I don't think it's crossing anyone's mind. Are you making anything so impactful that someone is going to sample you? And I don't think any artist has that impact right now. No one. No one. I mean, you have Kendrick and you have your J. Cole's, but unfortunately, because of how saturated the fan base is, you have people who don't like J. Cole and you have people who don't like Kendrick. So no one's sampling each of their music. And you have actually, let's get into this next topic. You no, I'm skipping one. But you have in beef records other people sampling each other during the instrumental, but it's not really a supportive sample. Like right now, you have young artists uh, sampling either lyrics or instrumental wise artists from the '90s, and now they have hit songs, but it's not really an original hit song. It's it's my song that I added to someone else's from the '90s. That's like taking a great painter's painting and changing it from the color red to the color green and calling it your own. Even though legally that's acceptable, that any change to any form of art is a change that's unique. But it's still from the eyes of a consumer, that's not yours, man. That's that's somebody else's.
Yeah,
Um,
I think Tory Lane should definitely listen to this podcast whenever he has a chance.
I wish we could forward it to him.
I just might
Um,
tweet it to him just to be just because.
and this isn't a shot to Tory Lane. I mean, no offense. I like that song. No offense to that song, but I he does have original content from what I know. But his original content isn't a number one, Billboard breaker. You know what I mean?
It's basically not giving you world tours. So
Right. So just I mean, I understand paying homage to those who came before you. Uh, uh, what I'm trying to think of a lyric. I'm going to get it in the middle of this podcast. I know it. That's how my brain works. But it's funny. You can pay homage lyrically, like in your verse, but you don't have to pay homage through the whole song. You know what I mean? And that's been going on for some time. I'm not going to beat a dead horse, but um, it is what it is. Right now, it's just it's to an all time high. Um, I haven't heard Schoolboy Q's album all the way yet. I try to listen to it at work and I always get distracted or I always have someone stop and talk to me or I have to effing turn it down. So, um, how did you, since I would have to assume the only one that listened to it all the way through. Now, I did do research on the fact that Schoolboy Q said a lot of people are riding Kendrick per se. Uh, And I do feel like that is the case because a lot of people are holding on to Kendrick as the great black hope for hip hop, him and J. Cole. Um, as far as being mainstream and being true to the art, a lot of people are holding on to him and J. Cole, excuse me, like a pacifier. But how do you feel about Schoolboy Q's album as a whole, like from A to Z?
I thought Schoolboy's album was a great body of work. I actually thought it was better than his first album.
Oh
Um,
man.
I say that because his first album was more it was more personal, but I don't think we got a chance to see the musical side. We didn't get a chance to see the creativity that he can come with. And I want to say I think in this second album we definitely got it. We definitely got an album full of great music. When you literally hear a song and all of a sudden Jake Jadakiss comes out of nowhere, I think it kind of hits you in your chest a little bit. And then when he drops the verse that he dropped, man,
Now that song I did hear, that is a beautiful. That is a a beautiful piece of work. I
I
mean,
mean,
that is a good song.
it sounded almost, it was a mix of an old Rough Riders track with a kind of a sort of like a Jay-Z-ish feel, but it was really slowed down. It was really grimy, and I just love that song. You know, the fact that you have Anderson .Paak throughout the album, I thought was pretty special as well too. Um, I love the Vince Staples feature. I thought that song was very well put together. I thought he had some pretty interesting choices for production, and I say interesting because it was almost as if I think he really tried to go outside the box this time. I felt like he really tried to make an actual complete album, and I think he succeeded perfectly. With this album, I thought the intro was amazing. I mean, there's really songs that you really can't go through, and it shows his range as well too, as an artist. You see him kind of stepping out of that box and kind of starting to do different things. You know, the song with Kanye is amazing. Um, I think Kanye kind of messed it up towards the end, but that last minute and a half,
Yeah, with that freestyle thing that he was doing.
yeah, I don't know what he was doing. Then the whole beat change, I didn't like that too much. Like, just keep the song the way it was. I thought it was fine. Come on, yay! But
Now, actually, as a single though, that song is doing very well as a single. It's on. As you said, you don't listen to the radio, and unfortunately, I'm being forced to. But it's in heavy rotation. I have to say that song is.
well, I think, and it's amazing because it's his song. That song in particular, are it's one of those songs where if you hear it on the radio a few times, you're like, okay, that's a nice song. But if you don't hear it on the radio, you're not necessarily crying about not hearing it. Um,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's one of those songs where the more and more you hear it, the more you want to listen to it over and over and over again. And I found myself the last week and a half actually doing that a few times. I would literally just skip to track 3 and just kind of had that on repeat for a while going into work. So, but I think that I think Schoolboy did a really good job, and I wish we could have a little more in depth conversation because I know you haven't heard all the way through, but just from what you've heard, what do you think about it?
Oh man, I've listened from track one to about four or five, and like you said, beautiful intro, way different than his first album. I
Oxy.
really I really have to say the Oxymoron album. It was I don't know, for Schoolboy Q and Absol and J Rock and Kendrick to all be in one group and not try to mold themselves after each other so much, to just stay consistent on who they are, just to always keep his content Schoolboy. He's not gonna give you a Kendrick like song. He's gonna give you Schoolboy song. That's just Schoolboy. Uh, I appreciate that 110%. I know when I listen to a Schoolboy Q body of work that it's going to be all Schoolboy, but I'm not ready to be pushed to the limit. So far, like I said, only 4 to 5 tracks, but Schoolboy has reinvented himself, but he stayed Schoolboy, and I like that. Like I can't remember the name of the song, but it doesn't. I think it's track 2 or 4. It doesn't. He has a video for it too. It doesn't have a hook. Let me make sure I get my
I
It
think
doesn't have a hook.
I think it's track 4. Track 2 actually does have a hook, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, yeah. Absolutely. That song, and I don't know if you've seen the video for it, but
I have.
I mean, it's awesome. Okay, and Schoolboy's not trying to give you something different. He's giving you Schoolboy. So
Honestly, I think Black Thought is probably the best song on that whole album.
you
And
think so?
to me, because I think it goes in depth with a lot of things, and the visual for that song pretty is pretty amazing to say the least.
Oh,
I think and like I said, I think he's starting to show his creativity. He's starting to show. If you think the first album was more personal about how he got to where he is, this album basically shows what's going on in his mind right now and what he's and how he's feeling. Like this might be a little step personal, more towards more of of a more of a journey inside his mind as to how he thinks and basically the stuff that maybe not him going through, maybe the people that he's known for years are going through now, or stuff that he's even seen in the past. So like I said, man, I thought he did a great job with the album, and the Black Hippie is the modern day dream team of music, and I hate to put that terminology and that much
Oh,
pressure on.
well, I mean,
I,
well put, because Slaughterhouse is too old, man. Slaughterhouse is old, so
well, see, I
you
don't
can't.
think Slaughterhouse would have worked about 5 or 6 years ago.
Well,
As
they don't
opposed,
work now.
well,
I mean,
I take that back. I take that back. I think they would have worked 5 years ago because they did work 5 years ago, but I don't think they would have worked in their prime. I think Crooked Eye has gotten a whole lot better as an
whole
MC.
lot better.
He's probably, I mean, he's definitely probably third because Royce and Joe are still just, I mean, they're still just nasty like that. Royce will always be Royce, regardless of what territory he's in.
Yeah, if he's
But I,
himself a rapper with Eminem, he's still Royce.
but I
That's-
think him and Buttons probably are probably a little too much similar. But I think Royce is just a little more. He's a little more tactical in his approach, how he
Yeah,
does things.
yep, I agree.
I think
I agree.
Joe kind of can fly off the handle a little bit, but he's gonna be tactful in his approach, but the delivery might not always be there. Royce is always gonna give you the same delivery, regardless of how how it comes across. But going back to Black Hippie and Schoolboy, you know the whole question about the people being on Kendrick is, I think what Schoolboy was referencing in that comment was that hey guys, you do realize Kendrick's not the only rap artist on the planet. He's not the only guy.
Exactly.
He's not the only guy that's got lyrics. He's not the only guy that's got style and creativity. He's not the only guy that can change and flip the world on its axis with one song or one verse or one word or one outlandish song. I think people should start respecting, and I think he I don't know if it was just him getting bothered by getting asked that question in the interview per se, but I think that all those guys can hold their weight, and I think the great thing about them is they all have a respect for one another. Um, and it's going to be interesting if they ever decide to do a Black Hippie album. I think people should just enjoy the music instead of trying to dissect, lyric songs, who did it better, who did it,
Yeah, I personally feel like Top Dog and Black Hippie need. I think they're on the right path, staying individuals. Because once you become a group, you kind of become a group forever, and that's what kind of sucks with being a fan and the end users of music, because even when you separate yourself, not to get off, but even when you got your Justin Timberlakes and your Omarions, I know it's another genre of music, but you always reference them to their bands that they used to be in, to the groups that they would always be in. I don't feel like Kendrick, Schoolboy, Absol, and J Rock need to do an album together, because we'll always remember them. Once that album comes out, they'll be stapled as Black Hippie now, and that's not what they want. They're individual artists. I think they're doing great as individual artists. I don't think they need to do a. They could do songs together, which they have been, and which I think they should continue to do. But I don't think a whole album of all four of them. I don't think it's what they need. I don't think it's what hip hop needs right now. I don't think all four on the same track would be.
I would disagree with you on that 100%, and I'll tell you why.
I don't
I
think they
think
need a. Go ahead.
I think they do, and the reason why I say they do is because I think they need what hip hop needs is they need someone to kind of push the envelope just a little bit. I think a Black Hippie album would do that on many levels, and I think they can successfully put together an album without it being forced. Don't let anybody know you're doing it. No promotion for it. Just drop it out of the blue. Don't. It needs to be nothing about that. And then what you do is when you go on tour, when you have that world tour that you're gonna people are going to fiend for. You go on tour, you do 2 or 3 songs from the album, and you do individual stuff like they did years ago when you and your better half y'all came to Raleigh. We saw the Black Hippie crew. We saw them all down at the height of Kendrick's popularity. He brought the whole crew on stage. I mean, on the tour with him.
That's very true.
And did that. I think they can do the same exact thing, and kind of capitalize off of it and do bigger venues now, because now you have the cachet to do those bigger venues.
I actually think it just boils down to me. I think it boils down between the difference between a mixtape and an album. I think they could do a great tape together, all four, but I don't think doing an actual album together is what they need. I think doing a Black Hippie mixtape would be amazing because I personally feel like it being something that they could do on tour, and I think it'll be an underground thing, releasing it free. Everyone will have it. Everyone will know the music. Everyone know the lyrics. But I don't think making it an album and actually have it stapled as Schoolboy, Absol, Kendrick, and J Rock have this. And you know what would be terrible is for that to be an album. That would be Absol and J Rock's first album. I don't think that's right. I feel like they still need. I think Absol might have on paper one album, but J Rock does not have a full album yet, and I don't feel like that's fair.
He's got a full album. I think J Rock's actually got 2 albums. J Rock actually started out as the original artist, the first artist out
On Top Dog. On Top Dog, yeah.
So he's got at least 2 or 3 albums in the bank. One on Interscope, per se. So I think J Rock's the oldest of all of them, and I think he has the most experience in the industry out of all of them. So I think he would actually be okay.
I'm talking aftermath though. I'm not talking about anything any of them did before, which J Rock being the main person in this scenario. Do you think it'll be fair for all 4 of the Black Hippie people to actually have an album versus a mixtape? I would, if it was a mixtape, I would love it. But that's just my mind. I think.
But to me, what's the difference though?
The difference is, and the best example that I like to give is Fab. All right, Fabulous, has released all the soul tapes and the last 2 mixtapes that he's done. These bodies of work are so great that they should be albums. I mean, the way the tracks flow, he could put it on a shelf. He could, but he never did. He always released it as a mixtape, gave it out for free, and went on tour and got all the tour money. That is the difference between a mixtape and an album. I can release a mixtape out for free. I have creative control over that. I could say, sure, charge $1. Sure, put it on Dat Piff, put it on live mixtapes. Let it be endorsed by DJ Drama. But an album, I have to get my tracks approved by A&Rs. I have to let the studio approve of everything. It's more of a formal aspect for an album. I really feel like we would get raw Black Hippie if they did a mixtape. I don't think we'd have any saturation. I don't feel like it would be diluted in any way for Black Hippie to just throw out a mixtape and then just be raw, and versus having to go through the channels of having an actual full album. And okay, another good example is that's what Slaughterhouse was dealing with for a long time. Um, they had a mixtape drop before the album, but if you remember the intro to their album, Joe Buttons wasn't on it because they told him they didn't need him to be. And he was okay about that. He was content with that because he's in a great rap group, so he was all right about that. But if they did a mixtape, I'm going back to Black Hippie, all creative control, all huddling, all thinking will be done amongst the team, will be done amongst all 4 of them. I personally would appreciate it a lot more. That's just, I guess that's me speaking personally, but I would prefer them to do a mixtape.
Quite frankly, it doesn't really matter to me. I'm still going to appreciate it regardless. But I will say, to your Fab point, he couldn't get the samples cleared, which is why he had to release the mixtapes. So I don't know if that's his fault, but truthfully,
No, but that wasn't and yes, you're right about that because he was going all soulful for us. But that wasn't the main reason why he did that. That wasn't the main reason why he did. I think he went into it with the intent of making it a mixtape anyway. Um, I don't think his goal was to make it an album because if he couldn't get the samples, then why did he do three of them?
because he couldn't get that. I'm gonna tell you exactly my thought process. He had a bunch of songs that he did recorded in a certain period of time.
Mhm.
He probably released them all on the mixtape. He couldn't get the samples cleared. He said, "You know what? I got this album." Because Fab had been working on trying to get an album out for at least
A
about a
long
year or
time,
two.
very long time. Yes.
So the songs that he couldn't get cleared, he decided to throw them on a mixtape. He started doing more songs. We're like, okay, now I need some more songs. Okay, I got this many songs for the album. Okay, let me do that. And mind you, you know, Fab is a great lyricist, but he's kind of fallen to that Nas spectrum a little bit as far as albums goes. Where where's the
Production.
where's the music on the albums? So
Yeah.
I think he did that because it was more a rebellious point, and he's the same as Crit. If you really want to go be honest with you, Crit has mixtapes album worthy. He's not going to release them because Def Jam doesn't want him to, or either he's like, you know what, I can't get these samples cleared, so let me throw them on a mixtape. Let me just go ahead and throw them out there. Let me get music free while you guys are waiting for this album to get put together. But
I
what I
personally,
will say,
I can't compare Crit and Fab though, because Crit does everything in house, and Fab's been around a longer. He's an OG, and I don't know. Crit's newer on the scene, but Crit is I give Crit a lot of credit. Crit is one of my favorite artists, and I respect a lot of artists who produce and write lyrics and compose the whole concept of a song. Like start from at least uh, A to Y. You know, they might not do a full A to Z, but they do most of the work. And not saying Fab doesn't, but Fab is an OG. A lot of times he hears the beat, he provides the lyrics, he has a concept with the lyrics, and he meets the sound engineer or producer in the studio. Big Crit will be in the studio for 24 hours. He's got to go all day because he's got to make everything. Um, so if anything, I compare Crit to your Travis Scott Kanye scenario where I worked hard on this beat. I made this sample sound so unsample like, and you still hear it. So now I need to get it approved. Fab is putting lyrics on someone else's beat or someone else's production, and now he's forced to wait. But he can also shop around and find a better. If I'm Crit, I don't want to shop around because I spent 8 hours on this beat. I wanted to get approved. I'm going to sit here until it is. And when it is, that's when I throw my lyrics on it and so on and so forth. But
well,
his never
but he hasn't though. Like Crip has released at least about 3 mixtapes by the time he's released these last 2 albums.
exactly. So I mean,
It's the same. It's the same as Fab scenario to me because it's like Fab's waiting. They're both waiting. Just the worst part about it is Crit did the work, Fab didn't. So it's like
okay, yeah, okay.
so now Fab using his own money, Crit using his own money, but it's like, look, I made these beats, so I'm keeping all the money to myself. I didn't want you guys to just get this music out. And like I said, it's just not. I think if they had an album, I think, and let's not act like we don't know, but Black Hippie has a pretty good control over creative control of what they do. I mean, I don't think Interscope's basically stopping that monster, that train from rolling. If they want that, the label's definitely not stopping it.
No.
But I think that
But that was me breaking down the difference between mixtape and album though. I wasn't saying that would uh that would really be the major effect of Black Hippie, but I don't want to just hear a verse or hear a hook and say, "Oh, that's what the label wanted to hear." I don't want to have that. I want to be able to hear a mixtape and enjoy it for its raw aspect. It's 110%, grade A, straight to your face. This is Black Hippie aspect. But I know Interscope wouldn't interject as much as some other labels would. So
Yeah, we're not throwing names out there like Def Jam or anything like that, but
no, we wouldn't say anything like Def Jam or Koch or anything crazy like that.
I
But
mean, nothing like Atlantic or anything like that. But
oh man, who are we to do something like
we're not those guys.
that?
But I mean, but seriously, I think they would say the same thing, and me personally, I would like for them to cash off of that because I think that's a collective, and they don't need to be on every song too. I think if you can kind of do like a compilation and kind of break it out, because I think what people are really wanting is they want to be on every song together. I think you can break it up. I think you can have a compilation album with, you might have three of them on one track. They might be able to talk about this subject matter more than somebody else. I can see, Ab Soul and Kendrick rocking on a few songs. I can see Soul and Q rocking on a few songs. I can see Rock and Ab Soul rocking about 2 or 3 songs together. And then Kendrick will do a song with each one of those guys, and then they might do 3 or 4 songs together. I can see them doing that. A mixtape, I think, it'd be taking money out of their pockets. I would pay for that album, which is why I would kind of want an album more than a mixtape. I would feel a little cheated taking the mixtape for free from those guys.
I guess so. I mean, if it's a good mixtape, you can always donate. Donate. They can always do a GoFundMe.
They not doing a GoFundMe. I'll tell you that right now. They ain't Fab. I mean, they ain't none of those guys trying. And Fab probably hasn't done it, but those other artists out here trying to get mixtapes credit. They not doing that. And now what they could do if they really wanted to, since it's technically a new group, they can kind of do something to that aspect. They can just find a distributor for that. Because basically, you're creating a whole new entity. Basically, like that doesn't count towards any one of those guys. That's a whole new group. So if you really want to do that, they can always, like you said, they can put it in GoFundMe. They can do a De La Soul, put it out there, let the fans donate the money for getting the album created, and once they get it done, and they basically have all the creative control. So that's kind of the interesting thing about it. Interscope doesn't have any control over them. They only have individual rights. If they want to create a whole new group, Interscope has nothing to do with that. Nothing. So they can go ahead to the people and say, hey, guys, we want to do an album together. Donate the money. Y'all want to hear it? Donate it. We'll get the album out. Here you go. Download. All we need is $5, $10, whatever the case may be. We're going to get this out to you whenever we get ready for it. So, there's a lot of different ways they can do it.
There's a lot of different ways. A lot of different ways. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you. If it was an album, I would be listening to it, wishing it was a mixtape, but still having a negative whatever amount of money they charged in my bank account. So, I mean, I guess that's one of the conversations where we're arguing over
Apples and oranges, man.
apples and oranges, and just good artists, because it is what it is.
Absolutely.
And I'm not not a big fan of Drake, so I'm actually not gonna, for the sake of this session, I actually don't think we need to touch every topic that we have here for Drake's situation. I'll just ask, because this one is kind of all encompassing. Like I said earlier, does Drake feel like he's more important than he really is?
Yes.
Do you feel like he feels that way now more than ever? And does that constitute to why he's in so much beef controversy?
So let me answer this question with a conversation I had with my wife earlier this evening, should I say. So we were in the car, we were heading to get some food, and the Drake diss track comes on, the one with French Montana. So I'm listening to it. We're both listening to it in the car, and she was like, I said, why everybody trying to go at Drake all of a sudden? I said, Drake says, Drake kind of somewhat started it to a certain degree, even though Budden kind of started the beef a little bit. But I mean, he came up with the diss track, 4 p.m. in Calabasas. He made it, said a few subliminal lines. He didn't really say the man's name. But he kind of kept referring to the guy as not relevant. One hit wonder. Those to me are kind of almost cheap shots because if you look at Joe Budden's history, yeah, he may only have 2 albums on wax, but the man's got a body of work that's about as long as anybody. And even all the Joe Budden mixtapes, all the Love Lost and all the Mute music, all those mixtapes should have been albums, but of course nobody's putting those out. So he, I think Drake does think he's bigger than he is, and I think he's only in that space because of the engine and machine that he has behind him. I think right now, if Drake were independent, I don't think he would have as big of an impact. The only reason why I say that is because I think that he would have had a hard time getting that. Now, if he were to be independent, strictly rapping, I would change my whole tune. But the fact that the last 3 albums has done primarily singing, I don't want an R&B album from a guy that I know can rap and can, if he really wanted to rap circles around people, if he really wanted to. But I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear anybody singing about being in a club, being in a bar, being drunk. I don't, thinking about an old ex. I don't want to hear that. If I want to hear that, I can listen to Music Soul Child or Jaheim or Maxwell. I can listen to those guys. I don't need a rapper to sing that kind of song for me to think about it. But I think a lot, and in credit to him, I think a lot of people, anytime somebody says anything negative about Drake, they always tend to blow it up to to bigger proportions than what it really should be. The whole Budden's review of Views. I mean, it was a personal opinion. It wasn't anything factual. I mean, unfortunately, the album's still doing great. On the shelves, despite the fact that me personally, I don't really think it was that great of an album, but it's still doing pretty well on shelves. Still number 1. I mean, Schoolboy probably should have had the number 1 album last week, but Drake beat him out. So it's just one of those things where I think people do kind of go at Drake a little indirectly at times, but I think some of it is self-inflicted. But I mean,
yeah.
He is who he is. He's the artist that he is, but I do think he feels he's probably a little more important than he probably is, but he hasn't made those moves yet to get to that stratosphere. But I will say he's pretty smart. I will say he's fairly smart in the business dealings that he's made because he's basically waited, and he's made the right decision. And I think he's kind of everything he's gone after. I think he's pretty much, or anything, mostly things he's sought after, he's pretty much gotten. So I have to give him kudos for that.
Yeah. He does meet his goals. He does meet his. He does have a rich catalog of achievements. I would have to give him that. I personally feel like I was talking to one of my friends and he compared Drake to Kanye psychologically, whereas kind of like sensitivity wise as well, where he's too big mentally for what things he should let go. So kind of like the same scenario where Kanye had to get a new publicist, and that publicist had to walk him through what to reply on, what to rebuttal on, and what to do. And the only reason why I disagree with my friend when he first said it, but thinking about it now, looking at how Drake has the Meek Mill thing, he could have let live. 4 p.m. in Calabasas, that was directed towards Bad Boy. And now, in my personal opinion, I feel like that was all Bad Boy. But listen to Joe Budden's breakdown. Some of it was towards him, I guess. And now Joe Budden, he's putting himself in the corner where no one else was attacking him per se besides Meek Mills, but it was on a Twitter level. He was firing shots that were quite unnecessary. He didn't need to attack certain people or even reply to certain people's responses. If you really feel that way about yourself, you don't have to rebuttal. If you feel like you've made it, if you feel like you've met your goals, you feel like you're in a good stance in your life, uh, what point is there stooping down to someone else's level? You're fine. If you've made it, then just deal with it. So I feel like personally, yes, Drake does feel like he's a little bit more important than what he is, but he does have tangible uh, things that go along with it. Like his fan base is crazy. It's kind of like Drake has his own beehive, if you will. So if you say something about Drake, which we'll probably have some comments under this video, people have something to say. Like Joe Budden is to me an OG. He's kind of legendary. He has a great body of work, and people on Twitter and Instagram and everything are saying Joe Budden's not relevant. He's too old. Nobody knows who he is. No one cares who he is, things like that. But people like you and I, from our generation, we respect Joe. Even Drake said he respected Joe before this whole beef thing. He said Joe paved the way for a lot of things that Drake did. But because of his fans, he's kind of changed face. So I do believe that Drake may feel a little bit more important than what he really is.
Well, I mean, you know, I don't know, man. I mean, you know, Drake. I mean, like I said, he is who he is. He's gonna do what he does, but I will say he didn't pull up on Kendrick like that though. So
Sure didn't. Sure didn't. And he won't. He
and he
won't
won't.
actually. He won't do that with J. Cole, Kendrick, or anybody else that's actually relevant in this space right now. And that goes into the point of you saying that he's smart. He's not going to attack anybody that's almost as popular as him, that came out in kind of the same class as him, of class of hip hop, because he wants to leave room to do music with them. Because if Drake leverages his features very well, every time you turn on the radio or every time you hear a new person's album or what have you, there's some form of Drake on it. Now, the people we listen to, you and I, probably not so much, but a lot of a lot of new artists want to have a Drake song. Future is a good example. Uh, French Montana. There's a list of people who need at least one Drake song on an album or a mixtape that they're doing. So Drake and Kendrick, they had their falling out. J. Cole prefers to do his own music himself because his last album was amazing and he had no features. So my man did it. But uh, it's still room for Drake to still work with one of them. Him and Kendrick can mend what they had. J. Cole and Drake have nothing against each other, so they can still work together. But from a fan perspective, it's obvious that he would not throw an arrow towards either one of those guys. He knows better than that. He'd be an idiot if he did. You know what I mean? So
He's Drake. I tell people all the time, Drake is very calculated in his moves. He's a very calculated guy. He knows what he's doing. He knows what not to do. So he won't do it. And like I said, he always knows at all talks. Yeah, like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, I just think that you know, he's not going to do it unless he's pressured. You know, like I said, I think the whole Meek Mill beef. I think he probably knew he could have won that, so he responded and responded pretty heavily. You know, and you know, even the whole Common beef. I think Common probably got him, but you know, you don't. As a young artist, you don't disrespect the OGs, man.
let me ask you this though, because I was thinking about this Common beef a while ago, last week actually. Did he make a diss track to Common? I actually remember it just being that feature that he did for French Montana. for Rick Ross. I'm sorry, where he said he threw shots at Common, but he didn't actually make a whole song towards Common.
Well,
I
see,
don't remember. Go ahead.
he pulled a hove in that regards because Jay-Z's known for doing stuff like that. Like he'll never make a whole diss track unless your name is Nasir Jones. But he made a I would say half of that verse was directed towards Common, and he did it, and it worked. But Common made at least 2 or 3 different songs and actually put them on his album. So
so that goes into my point. I think Drake is pulling the same tactic with Joe Budden. Drake has not actually made a whole song for Joe Budden. When it comes to the OGs, Drake does not feel confident enough, evidently, or as you said, calculated. He doesn't see anything, that he could get out of it by doing a whole track to an OG. So he'll throw subliminal shots or sometimes obvious shots to an OG on a feature for someone else. And ironically, it's I don't want to say it's the same person, but it's the same context of a song. So he's featured on a hood rapper song, and now he's attacking an OG. But the OG's kind of poking him, saying, hey, do a song, do a full verse, or do a full track. And he doesn't do it. I think his strategy is easy to figure out. If that was a chess move, it'd be checkmate right now, because I already figured out that this is what he's going to do.
All Drake's doing is moving pawns around the board. That's all he's doing.
That's it, man.
When it comes to the OG, when he's playing a real chess player, he always doing moving pawns. He's trying not to get beat.
That's it. He's not going to move his king at all. He's just going to lick it. He's just going to move his pawns around.
That's all. He's moving his pawns. And honestly, he knew he could win that Meek Mill beef, and he did. And he went hard because he knew he could win.
Yeah.
Drake's not going to go against guys who he doesn't think he can beat. Lyrically.
I think he's only going to do something like that against people from his current class, like the class that came in with him, or the people that came in after him. All right. Mm-hmm. If you came in from before Drake's class, he idolizes you per se. He respects you, so he's not going to do it. He's not going to do it.
He even did that little, it wasn't really, that big of a shot, but he threw a little solo shot at Chance, and Chance really kind of ignored it. I mean, he's like, that was one of the older songs. It was like, I don't know, maybe 2012, 2013, kind of somewhere in that range. But I mean, maybe 2014, I think. But like I said, he's not going to fight. He's not going to not fight, but he's not going to beef with anybody who he knows can run laps around him lyrically. And it's going to be interesting to find out. And he, of course, in most people's eyes, he's going to have the ultimate trump card, and that's just going to be money. So,
Yeah. Now, if it was a bank account battle, Drake would win every time. So, yeah.
But the only person, see, this is the thing that I don't like about Drake. If you're gonna really come at somebody and you make those comments, you keep coming at Jay-Z talking about making certain comments or remarks. Why not come all the way? And you first of all, you go at Jay-Z, previously, and you kind of let things settle. But then you get them on a track, which you make as a single, but you don't put it on your album, the actual remixed version. So see, then you kind of go out and make some comments, and then Jay-Z basically has not a whole song, but Jay-Z's got at least half in each of the verses that he did on the song, kind of in reference to some of the statements that he's made. So, I mean, look, man, Drake, just stay in your lane, man. Unless you're gonna really rap full time, nobody wants to hear that, man.
Keep singing, man. Go ahead and keep singing, buddy. Go ahead and keep singing. So, I've been outside of the music world for a little bit, I've been moving, doing a whole bunch. Uh, are there any new artists that you would like to plug or share right now?
Honestly, man, there's maybe one or two artists that I've been listening to recently. Snow Allegra, she's an R&B singer. She doesn't know hip hop, but she has an album called Don't Explain EP, which I think is really dope. It's actually great grooves, real smooth.
You said
And
Snow Allegra?
Snow Allegra, Snoh, and Allegra's with two A's. So she's fairly dope. Love her, love her style. Love the album. The Don't Explain album is really dope. And from a hip hop standpoint, man, not really many people. But if you haven't heard her now, I sure as heck hope that you do soon. Shout out to Rhapsody, the
Oh
newest
yeah.
newest artist on Rock Nation family with the joint venture deal with Jamla Records. Big shout out to my man Ninth Wonder. Big shout out to Rhapsody and the whole Jamla team. Shout out to Young Guru for making that happen. I think Jay-Z's building a nice little roster there with Cole and Vic Mensa and Rhapsody. You got Fab as well too. So I think Jay's gonna be good for people.
Oh, and DJ Khaled.
And definitely we the best. Definitely we the best. And I'm gonna tell you something. Khaled's got a. I think Khaled has really started to change circles a little bit because he's starting to get artists now, and he's actually got some really good songs in this whole "We the Best" tape. And I think this might be his best one yet. But we have yet to see what the other songs.
Hey, I'm gonna tell you which was really smart. Getting back to the Drake thing, DJ Khaled letting one of his singles be a Drake song from his album. That was very smart because he knows Drake. Drake is very consistent with his singles. I tell you that. Drake drops a single, everyone's gonna listen to it. So that's money in DJ Khaled's pocket. I tell you, that's a smart move.
I mean, it is. I mean, and Khaled, Khaled's kind of like Clue. Khaled's the new DJ Clue of our generation. He's in it. He's not as much much of a DJ, as Clue was or is now. But Khaled's he's got the cachet to get artists from all different genres and regions of music to come together on a certain track or even a whole album. So he's kind of got that cachet now to do that, and he can pull a Drake on the song, and Drake kind of barring Too Short's flow for a good half a verse and make it a single. So,
But he's known for that. He's got it. That's his MO, man. That's terrible.
it is, man. But shout out to Fonte, the guy who originated Drake's flow to begin with. So.
Yeah, big shout out to him.
Yeah. So like I said, man, I think I think music's gonna be a little interesting next few months. We got some certain artists coming out. And hopefully we get a Frank Ocean album soon.
Yeah, if he decides to tell the truth.
Yeah, if he decides to tell the truth, but we'll see. We'll see.
I'd be excited to hear that, but we'll see. Hopefully Tyler Creator gets to produce a good amount of that album. I'd be excited to hear that because he's an amazing producer. He's really good. So I think Frank needs this album too, though, because I'm pretty sure dealing with the Chris Brown beef and so much that's happened to him over time, he would have a lot to talk about. He would have a lot to sing about. I think he needs to just go and let it out. Let that album out. Excuse me, get it done.
I mean, I think more so Frank needs it for his sanity because I think he's going to end up getting into that D'Angelo realm, which you got two albums that come out and they're fairly good albums, and then nobody hears from you for about 14 years, and you decide to release your third one, which by the way, his third one was the best of all three, but I mean, you don't want to be in those shoes because then you got to
Right.
bring it. You got to bring it. Don't get me wrong. Brown Sugar is probably still the best of the best, but that Vanguard album was something special.
Yeah. I mean, he should have took notes from Usher. I mean, you got to kind of stay consistent in the R&B realm. You can't. I mean, you can drop the mic on Confessions, but uh,
That's where the mic should have dropped and stayed dropped.
he did one more album after that. I forgot his The Way I Am or something like that.
That last album he did was the album he did after Confessions was awful.
Uh, what is the name of that album?
I don't know. It might have
But
been like Rings or something crazy. It might have been something stupid.
but everything before that. Oh yeah, Here I Stand. Yeah, I was right. Here I Stand in 2008. That was his last album, and
Awful.
yeah. And then he also did one more in 2012, but no one cares about that. So everything Usher did up to Confessions was amazing, right? And then you got the rest of that crap. So
Yep.
but then when you sign Justin Bieber, I mean nobody can really say too much about what you're doing. I
I
mean
mean,
just
if you're talking cash, yeah, it's not much, but
about music. And he's been smart since 2012, though. He's been jumping on features of top 40 artists, which is very good. And that I don't want to get into that conversation, but I feel like a lot of artists need to do that. They need to accept the moment where they feel like that they don't when their fans realize that they're feature artists. That's it. They're only good for features. Don't you dare make a full album. Don't you dare make a full mixtape.
kind of like Future. Future should definitely stick to features right now.
Hey, I can't argue that because I actually agree with that. Just keep making these hooks, and that's all we need. We don't need you to, because if we know you as the guy for hooks, Future, and you do a full song, now I'm a bit confused. I don't know. I really don't know what lyrics. Should I be listening to the hooks lyrics, or should I be listening to your mixture of lyrics, your
The
jumbo?
jibber jabber. Nah, we good,
Yeah,
man.
no, man. So. All right, so this is the last topic, and to me, this is one of the biggest topics because this was an anvil on my head. It's one of those cartoon pianos that fell. Uh, I'm going to leave. I know you're more abreast to why this happened and what happened, so this is more of a question to you. No All-Star game in Charlotte, man. What happened? How did this happen? Is it because that new law that's being passed that not true? Is it a political reason why, or what's going on?
It's politically driven, and I think the NBA for the last few years has taken a stance in trying to be more equal, and you kind of have to be with the league that's 75% African American, so you really can't have any disinclusion or exclusion, should I say, for that matter. So when you have a law that gets passed with provisions in it that stipulate the what's the word I'm looking for? And I know I just said it. The the distance for from people not including them, excluding them.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of put yourself in a situation where you've been inclusive for the LGBT community, and allowing Jason Collins to be the first professional gay player in any of the four major sports. So why would you now all of a sudden backtrack and allow your biggest event for your sport and league, biggest weekend for your sport and league, basically for all the fans, to basically have that dark cloud over it? So they decided to pull it out, and it's interesting because Charlotte basically they put their foot and submitted in concrete and said we're not moving. And unfortunately, they left the feet in the concrete a little too long, and they got stuck.
Yeah, there's no getting out of that cement now, but
Yeah, they're kind of stuck. And when you get stuck and stand in a position like the NBA did, basically the NBA said, you know what, we're stuck. We're not stuck in the cement yet. So we're out of here. We'll think about you guys in a couple of years if things change. If things don't change, then so be it. But I got a pretty strong feeling that law is going to end up changing once the governor's seat changes, and I think it will. Now, I'm not 100% all in agreement for it. I do think they should be included, but I do think they should have some provisions that allow children to be protected in this case. And you definitely don't want to expose children to something of that nature, things of this nature at an early age, where they're seeing things with their own eyes. But, I think that's a responsibility to the federal government, responsibility on the parents as well. And, it's also a responsibility to the sporting leagues to basically, stand pat and do things. So I can kind of see both sides of it, but, I'm siding with the NBA on this one. I think you shouldn't exclude it. And the government basically is being spiteful now. The whole government of North Carolina is being spiteful and not changing this law, and they're allowing millions of dollars to leave people's pockets. And the fact that they're upset that over $100 million is leaving the city of Charlotte, they should be upset. You're the guys that signed this law and didn't have it ratified, and you just decided to blue. So when you guys make decisions like that, you ought to reap everything that you get, whether it be benefits or consequences. So
Yeah.
they lost the All-Star game, and hopefully the only people that are getting hurt by the situation are the fans of the NBA who were looking forward to coming, who've already brought tickets and hotel rooms.
That's what I was going to interject with, but you said it. Yeah, a lot of people already purchased stuff like that. So,
I mean, it's of course, you can still go to Charlotte that weekend, but you're just not going to get what you paid for.
Exactly.
And honestly, it's kind of interesting that they did that, but like I said, I think the NBA didn't have much of a choice, and I think the state of North Carolina doesn't have much of a choice, because then it's almost, you basically kind of put yourself in those positions, so you have to take stance at some point. So, and instead of, I think they might have tried to work something out, but nothing happened, and the city of Charlotte now is going to lose one of the biggest sporting events, and I know Michael Jordan's not happy. He spent all that money trying to renovate that arena to get that All-Star game. So, it's unfortunate. I was definitely going to go, but I'm not spending any money on getting a ticket yet, so it's more money in my pocket. But I'm kind of curious though, because I want to touch this subject once you've lived in that area for about the next few months or so.
Yeah.
Just to kind of the impact that it's going to have on not only the citizens and residents of that area, but also those local businesses in the epicenter, and the hotel chains around the Omni, and places that are the Hyatt houses and the Renaissances and all those different restaurants and stuff that are in that area. How they're reeling from that impact of losing all that tourist money.
Yeah, it was a lot of potential money that they could have earned. A lot of potential money, but as Charlotte is a big attraction, big tourist attraction. Like I said, I think it's just potential money. I think they should be okay, but it's the principle. I think they're gonna be upset that they lost out on all that potential money.
Well, honestly, I don't think you can really you can't really measure the impact of an All-Star game, especially when cities are starting to rake in almost $500 million just off tourism money and spending alone. And I think the city of Charlotte was really amping up for that. That was one of the biggest events that would have ever happened in Charlotte, aside from the Democratic National Convention in 2012. In Charlotte, but I definitely feel like that All-Star game, that 3-day weekend, would have definitely been. I mean, that really 4 days if you include Thursday night when they kind of kick things off. But I really feel like that whole 4 days would have been a great look for the city of Charlotte to get people to get interested in that city and for the residents of that city to kind of, showcase the best. And it's unfortunate they won't be able to get a chance to do that now, maybe not until 2019 possibly. So
Yeah, this is terrible, and the fact that the NBA is looking at New Orleans. I mean, what a come up, right? What a plan B. So,
well, New Orleans has hosted several All-Star events in the past, and they've all been pretty successful in that area.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. That's a great plan B. It was like, hey, Charlotte, here's an opportunity. Oh, you don't want it? Okay, well, we'll go with the faithful one. Don't worry about it.
But I'm actually hoping they don't. I'm actually hoping they don't have it in New Orleans. I really would like to see Chicago get it. Chicago hasn't had an All-Star game since 1988. And of course, they were in Toronto last year when it was pretty cold. And honestly, I know they try to like to have a little warmer weather. More people can participate. But I think Chicago would be a fairly nice city, and I would like to see them. Especially with all the things going on now, actually having NBA players, taking a stance in the community in Charlotte. I mean, not Charlotte, but Chicago, and kind of seeing what's going on there. Kind of giving some positive feedback and doing some things in the community in Chicago. Hopefully to kind of end that, to end that streak of violence that's going on there.
Yeah, definitely, because they definitely need that. Hopefully it wouldn't increase it. It may, yeah, hopefully it does. We could table that for. I think this is worth being tabled. I think we need to talk about it. Like you said, in a couple months we'll touch on that again.
Absolutely.
Well, loyal fans and all the people watching at home and viewing this on your mobile devices, if you are, this will be the wrap up. This will be the end of it, and I want to thank you for watching it. And I want to thank my brother Michael Wesson for being a part of this.
Absolutely.
And it's been a pleasure.
It has, guys. Thank you guys again. We appreciate you guys, and stay tuned. Episode 7 is right around the corner. Please feel free to leave your comments, posts, and suggestions, anything like that in the comments box in the comments section below. And feel free to also follow us on Twitter at NovaBrainiacs.com, which is our Nova Brainiacs Twitter handle. And, of course, our individual ones, if you want to kind of touch base with us individually, at T.com and at I Am Lesson on Twitter. Thank you guys again, and good night.
Good night.